A simple family dinner turned into one of the most shocking crimes in history. What began as laughter around the table ended in silence so chilling that it shook the entire nation. This is the story of the Warren family, and the night their lives, and the lives of countless others, would never be the same. The Warren family was the kind of family people pointed to as an example of the American dream. David Warren, 46, was a respected banker in the small town of Ridgewood, Pennsylvania. He was tall, serious, the kind of man who wore pressed shirts even on weekends, and who believed in hard work above all else. His wife, Elaine, 42, was his opposite in many ways, warm, gentle, and nurturing. She worked part-time as a teacher's aide at the local elementary school and was beloved by children who remembered her patient voice and endless encouragement. Together, they had 3 children. Michael, 17, was the oldest. He was intelligent and creative, but increasingly withdrawn. A boy who filled sketchbooks with detailed drawings that few people ever saw. Rachel, 14, was full of life, quick with a joke, and always surrounded by friends. Ethan, just 10, was the youngest, the golden-haired boy who still believed in superheroes and asked endless questions at the dinner table. Neighbors often described them as perfect. Their white 2-story house on Maple Drive was well kept, with a manicured lawn and holiday decorations carefully hung each season. Elaine often hosted potluck dinners for the community, filling the home with the scent of fresh bread and roasted meats. From the outside, the Warrens were a picture of stability and love. But appearances are fragile things, and behind closed doors, fractures were forming. Michael, the quiet one, had begun to drift away from his family. Teachers noticed his grades slipping. Friends noticed his laughter fading. He had been spending more and more time alone, listening to music that unsettled his parents and filling his notebooks with dark, violent sketches. His father dismissed it as a phase, while his mother worried but hesitated to push him. To his siblings, Michael was simply distant, a shadow that lingered at the edge of the family's bright image. No one realized how deep his turmoil ran. On November 18, 1994, the Warrens prepared for what should have been an ordinary Friday night dinner. The air was crisp outside, the last leaves of autumn scattered across Maple Drive, and inside, the house glowed warmly. Elaine roasted a chicken, Rachel set the table with her usual precision, and Ethan buzzed with excitement about a school project he wanted to show everyone. David poured himself a glass of wine and sank into his chair, weary from a long day at the bank. The family gathered at 7 o'clock. Plates were filled, stories were shared. Ethan made jokes that sent Rachel into fits of laughter, and Elaine scolded them playfully when their giggles grew too loud. Even David, usually stern, cracked a smile. For a moment, the house felt alive, warm, happy. But at the end of the table, Michael sat in silence. He pushed food around his plate, his expression unreadable. His eyes flickered now and then toward the stairs, where in his room, hidden in a drawer, lay his father's revolver. He had discovered it months before, tucked away but not locked, and in his mind it had become a solution, a tool to end the weight he carried. As the family finished dinner and began clearing the table, Michael excused himself. His footsteps on the stairs sounded ordinary, unnoticed, just another moment in the routine of family life. Upstairs, he opened his drawer, pulled out the revolver, and held it in his hands. For a long moment he stared at it, his reflection glinting faintly in the metal. Then, without hesitation, he walked back down. At 7:42 p.m., he entered the dining room again. His parents were laughing at something Ethan had said. Rachel was stacking plates. No one noticed at first when he lifted the gun. Then Elaine gasped, whispering his name. David stood abruptly, confusion etched across his face. Rachel froze, her mouth open in disbelief. Ethan looked up with wide, innocent eyes and asked in a trembling voice, "Michael!" The first shot shattered the night. Neighbors would later recall hearing what they thought were fireworks, sharp cracks in the cold air, followed by silence. By the time police arrived, the Warrens' home was a scene of devastation. David and Elaine lay near the table, their faces frozen in shock. Rachel had collapsed beside her chair. Ethan's small body was in the kitchen doorway, as though he had tried to flee. Michael was gone. The murders sent shockwaves through Ridgewood, this quiet town, where doors were rarely locked and neighbors waved from porches, suddenly became the epicenter of a nightmare. The FBI was called in. Helicopters swept the woods. Schools went into lockdown. For days, Michael Warren was the most wanted teenager in America. The media seized on the story. Newspapers described him as a monster. Talk shows debated whether violent music and video games were to blame. Experts dissected the cracks in suburban families, asking how a boy from such a perfect home could harbor such darkness. Some speculated about cults, others about drugs, but the truth remained elusive. For 5 days, Michael eluded capture. He traveled at night, slept in abandoned sheds, and stole food where he could. His face appeared on television screens across the nation, his high school yearbook photo haunting millions of households. Parents clutched their children tighter, wondering if such violence could emerge in their own homes. On November 23rd, a truck driver in Ohio spotted a thin, disheveled young man walking along the highway. His clothes were dirty, his hair matted, his eyes distant. Police arrived quickly and confirmed it was Michael Warren. He did not resist. He offered no explanation. As handcuffs closed around his wrists, he only muttered, "It doesn't matter anymore." The trial that followed drew national attention. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, locals, and grieving relatives. Prosecutors painted Michael as cold and calculating, citing his disturbing journals filled with violent fantasies and his careful planning. They argued that he had waited for the perfect moment, that this was not an act of impulse but of intent. The defense portrayed him as a broken boy, consumed by depression and isolation. Psychologists testified about his mental state, pointing to warning signs of severe illness that had gone unnoticed. They spoke of loneliness, of the crushing pressure he felt to meet his father's expectations, of a boy who believed he was invisible even in his own home. The jury listened, but the weight of the crime was heavy. For lives taken in cold blood, a family erased in minutes. In 1996, Michael Warren was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He was 17 when he pulled the trigger. He would never again walk free. The Warren tragedy did not end in the courtroom. It rippled outward, changing conversations across the nation. Parents began to question how well they truly knew their children. Schools introduced new counseling programs, and communities debated how to recognize silent cries for help. Politicians clashed over gun safety, teen mental health, and the responsibility of families. Documentaries were made. College lectures dissected the case. True crime programs returned again and again to the chilling image of a dinner table turned into a crime scene. The very symbol of family unity had been corrupted, leaving a scar in the collective memory of a generation. The house on Maple Drive stood empty for years. Curtains drawn, grass uncut, it became a local legend. Children dared each other to approach its porch. Some claimed they saw lights flicker in the windows or heard whispers in the night. To many, it was not just a house but a grave, a reminder that even the happiest homes could conceal unthinkable horrors. Today, Michael Warren is in his 40s. He sits in a maximum security prison, his once boyish face hardened by decades behind bars. Journalists who have interviewed him describe him as distant, his eyes empty. When asked why he did it, his responses vary. Sometimes he is silent, sometimes he shrugs. But one statement has remained consistent, repeated over the years in a flat, emotionless tone. They didn't see me. Nobody did. The story of the Warren family remains one of the most chilling crimes in modern American history. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the fragility of family bonds, the warning signs of mental illness, and the dangerous ease with which violence can erupt. What began as a happy family dinner ended in unimaginable horror. The echoes of that night continue to haunt not just Ridgewood, Pennsylvania, but every parent, sibling, and neighbor who wonders if something similar could happen again. And perhaps the most haunting question of all remains: do you think this crime could have been prevented? If you love chilling true crime stories like this, hit subscribe and never miss the next mystery.